Hi, and welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Beyond the Playbook podcast. And as you can see, it's not just two people over here, there are three people. It's like the very first time it's happened. It's like a crossover event, at the end of this year, we're going to see Avengers Doomsday, so something along those lines. So this is the Doomsday event of, the Beyond the Playbook universe, the podcast universe. So, hi, Sai. Hi, Philip. Okay, guessing this is the first time both of you are seeing each other after a long time.
It is indeed. And I'm wondering if you're about to announce a new sponsor because Sai is back on the podcast together with me. It's like the universe couldn't support this during the summer, but here we are at the end of the tournament, ready to go. And it's great to be back on with Sai again as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think like this is the best time to pull out big guns, so to speak. So yeah, I think this is
Yeah,
the apt time.
you always end on a high.
Yes, yes.
That's it. Unless you're the World Cup final, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. The less said about it, the better I would say. But of course, we have to speak about it. But yeah, like just before we start, just wanted to get to know from both of you, like how are you feeling after that month plus of spectacular action for the most part up until let's just say the last week or so. And yeah, it like the I think like what I always say is like I think the World Cup is the greatest show on earth. Like I don't think anything else in the Olympics comes a little bit behind the World Cup, I would say, in terms of the fanfare with which we, I mean, I would say I consider it. I think I probably also you guys probably would be along the same lines, but probably you could beg to differ as well. But I think that is the beauty of a World Cup, and the scarcity of it happening 4 years as well just definitely makes it, amazing, so to speak. So yeah, any thoughts from like let's start with Philip first.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, Ashish, because like the thing about the Olympics is that it's so many different sports spread out. It happens once every 4 years, but everybody is doing their niche kind of thing. So I don't watch a whole lot of certain sports, synchronized swimming, not really my thing. Boxing, always watch it. The only thing that everybody gathers around is probably the men's and women's 100 meters, and those races are over in 11 seconds and are run off in one day. And that's pretty much it. So the World Cup now, if Gianni and the guys get their way, we'll have every country involved in it. It's going to go on every 4 years for 1 year each time, and but there's so much really to take from it. And the more we've spoken on this podcast, the more you realize, how much there is to dig into in terms of the personalities and the tactics and the politics and the commerce and the economics of these things and what happened off the field as well. So I'm kind of still, since the last time we spoke, which was just before the final, I'm still trying to work through some of those things because every World Cup is remembered for, certain specific incidents or goals or red cards and that kind of thing. But there's been so much that's happened over the last month or 5 weeks that, are we going to remember the Norwegians rowing? Are we going to remember Paraguay kicking lumps out of everybody? Are we going to remember that the final was what they euphemistically call one for the purists and it wasn't the most exciting game at all? It wasn't really the sort of grandstand finish of Leo Messi's career. But I mean, I think it is a World Cup, being the first 40-18 World Cup that we're going to talk about for years to come.
Yeah. What about your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously we all are feeling that void, obviously. But like you mentioned, there are a lot of like the World Cup compared to the Olympics. There's another angle that you bring in is the hate watching angle to a World Cup. You don't hate watching the Olympics. You actually support the other teams that you may not that don't belong to your own country. But the hate watching in the World Cup, especially, is very elite. Um, and as you go higher, like deeper into the tournament, I think it gets a lot funnier as well. Um, but yeah, thankfully sports goes on, and right now there's the Commonwealth Games to focus on. But you definitely feel the after effects of the World Cup and not having to wake up and watch the highlights in the morning. I still wake up and I find myself scrolling to the streaming app. Uh, but yeah, I really still I miss the World Cup, but on a very positive note, I'm looking forward to the next year for the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think that's happening in Brazil as well, and that'll is that a 32 team event or 2014 one?
Sorry, I can't remember how many teams are involved in that now, but I know they have been expanding it the last few years. So I think it's probably 24 teams next time out. this is unusual now because usually I complain about these things, there being too many teams. But I think there's 24 teams in the next World Cup, all right. So it's going to be that's going to be a great summer of football again.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the great legacy footballing nations as well. So it will be a great spectacle as well. And hopefully, like we'll get to that when that happens next year as well. Definitely, we'll definitely cover it. So now, okay, like I've tried delaying talking about that final as much as possible. So, but now we have to talk about it. And I mean, like I'll just start with my thoughts on it. Like I think me, Sai, and another friend of ours were on this text chain, and he posed the question that whether this was the most boring World Cup final in contemporary history. And me being the sage old man in the group, I was like, I remember 2010 World Cup, and that was like one of the most horrific finals I've ever watched. And like imagine a 12-year-old me watching that final, and just I almost stopped watching football after that particular final. So there is that. And I remember that. So any other game would compare to that. And we also had in the same World Cup, we had Spain versus Portugal, one of the oh my God, one of the most pointless games of football I've ever seen. So like I really beg to differ on that point. But yeah, it was like I mean, like it's more like that same friend. He's not much into football, and if you also contrast it with the events of the previous day as well, right? 6-4 games. So when you contrast that, so 10 goals were scored there, and here barely 1/10 of that was scored in the game. So I understand the contradiction in that, but yeah, like not really. I don't think the Argentinians, cover themselves in glory, so to speak, with a lot of their antics during the game and even post the game and during the tournament as well. So, and, as we speak right now, I think a couple of Argentinian senators are suing a bunch of accounts on social media for slandering them. And yeah, like very crazy. Like, that's all I would say. I
Yeah,
hope
the world
I'm
of
not among those accounts. I don't know whether I can afford to pay 2 million Argentinian pesos, so to speak, as a fine.
Well, that's probably about €2, knowing how the economy there has gone over the last few years. So I think we'll chip in. Myself and Si will chip in to help you out if that
Yeah,
happens. But I always think that finals have a terribly bad reputation. And I think we have to sort of zoom out and look at two things, right? One is that the standard of football is so high. Nobody gets to a World Cup final by accident, right? It's often the two best teams in the world at that particular time that get there. It's very seldom. I mean, we saw Greece winning the Euros back in 2004 or whatever it was, and they went in there with a very clear tactic and they were going to play their game their way, and nobody else worked them out. It's so difficult. I mean, only a handful of countries have won the World Cup, and it's so difficult to do. So the standard is extremely high, but so are the stakes. And when you get into a game like that, and Spain went in there well prepared, Argentina went in there well prepared, and nobody is going to deviate from their tactic. So Argentina said to Spain, you know what? You go ahead, have the ball, muchachos. You go do what you're going to do with the ball. We're just going to sit here. And Spain were going, no, 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 come up the field a little bit. Give us a little bit of space to play into. The Argentinians were going, you know what, man? We're fine. We'll just wait here. And that's more or less what happened for about 70 minutes. And it's interesting to watch that because it poses a different kind of problem. And it's kind of like watching young people drinking wine, right? Because I'm not a wine drinker. I don't drink alcohol at all. But people will tell you that this old vintage wine has so much nuance and taste and that kind of thing. But, your palate is too young. And I would say the same thing about World Cup finals like this. You can find intrigue in that. You can find, how Rodri was trying to move the ball around and how Cucurella was coming up the left and the timing of that and who moved in concert with him and everything else like that. That's no use whatsoever when the three of you are in a WhatsApp group or when you're sitting there with a couple of nice cold beers in the fridge rather than this vintage wine we've been talking about. And you just want to see something really exciting. And that's why I think that we can never get rid of the third place playoff, right? Because that's just a fairground attraction of a game. It's just a circus. It was brilliant. France, came out. England didn't want to play, and I think Bellingham said it before the games, like nobody wants to play this game, and they didn't. France didn't play. Sorry, for the first 45 minutes, and then the second half, when Deschamps came in there and went, guys, this is my last game. Is this what you're going to leave me with? This performance in the first 45 minutes. So we got the entertainment 24 hours previously, or whatever it was, and then I think the final was. I think we look back on it as being one of those games where tactics reigned supreme. And do you know what it was for me, guys? Was this is the full circle moment from that terrible final that you mentioned there in 2010 to this terrible final here. Spain's type of football, this tiki-taka influence football, is now back on top, right? So we
Yeah.
went through a period of tiki-taka, 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 gegenpressing, 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 low block, low block, low block, low block. And now tiki-taka has found the way again, right? The goal was brilliant from Spain. If that's the only goal that's in the game to win it, it's a deserved winner of a goal. It's a brilliant finish by Ferran Torres and well deserved in that. And that's what football is going to look like now for a little while until somebody comes up with a new way of pressing. There's a rule change, like we've had with goalkeepers being able to play the ball to players inside the box, for instance. That's what's going to swing things away from Spain's favour again. So I do think the game got an awful lot of bad press, but I do find it fascinating on many levels as well.
Yeah, it's like they say, right? These sorts of games are for the sickos, like, the true blooded sickos, and that's what it is. And yeah, like, and also, like, if you see concerts as well, there are certain concerts where there's this large, the main act, but preceding them, there will always be, the people who will open for them. And I think the
Yeah.
third place playoff is like the perfect opening act, so to speak, for, what could may or may not turn out to be a great, performance by the main performers, so to speak. So yeah, like Sai, what are your thoughts? Like I'm pretty sure it's along the similar lines, but
I think Si just hate watched the whole thing, didn't you?
yeah. I mean, she was an Argentina fan, to be fair. So yeah, there's that as well. So
So I hate slept. I watched the first half. I started watching this. I was 5 minutes into the second half, and I decided this was not. I was not going to waste my sleep on this, and I fell asleep. It was 2 a.m. as well over here, so I definitely didn't want to stay up, especially because I had a feeling it was going to go beyond the 90,
I
and I was
mean,
not staying up for that.
you would have been lulled to sleep by Justin Bieber's number during the halftime act as well. So there was that as well.
Oh
So
yeah, I avoided the halftime show. I thought I'd take a nap in the 30 minutes, but I honestly, the game put me to sleep even before that. Um, but yeah, as I went into this tournament as an Argentina fan, obviously a lot of things went down throughout the tournament, a lot of dodgy results, etc. But a small part of me was still happy that they made it to the final. But once I started seeing the way Spain played in the final, and the way Argentina started reacting to the game, I feel like the game was sort of lost over there. Like you when you sometimes see um, the game being played between the minds of the two teams, you see it mentally being played, and you see one team slowly go down into a mental route of uh, they I won't say they realize they're playing it's a lost cause, but it's almost like they take the pressure on themselves when they realize that the other team is not yielding to their say press or whatever it
tactics.
is. I feel like their tactics. So I feel like ultimately it sort of became a mental game as well, and you can mentally see that Argentina was going down and Spain was gaining confidence as the game went on. Uh, I wasn't surprised by the result when I woke up and I checked the score. Honestly, like a small part of me was sad, but I honestly wasn't surprised at all.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
I
was
think
interesting the way that when as the game wore on, and you saw that okay, there's two teams in this game, but who is more likely to solve the puzzle in front of them? And that was when I looked at Messi and I went, "We're probably done here." Okay, this is the best team that he's faced in the tournament, and it's just not there anymore. Okay, and the other thing that's interesting, guys, or that I found interesting about it was that the gap down. Okay, so you have Argentina, you have Spain, the best team in the world at the moment, the result of the World Cup. You have Argentina, who they beat in the final. And they're the second best team. I'd say probably not. France are probably the second best team in the world at the moment for me, right? Then maybe Argentina. But the drop off then to England in terms of tactics and concentration and discipline and the ability to take a game plan and to go out and not implement it but for yourself, but impose it on the opposition. I found that gulf to be absolutely huge. There was an American comedian in the 90s called Bill Hicks, and he used to talk. He does a great thing you'll find on YouTube about the Iraq War, and he talked about, how Iraq had the fourth largest military in the world. And he says, you know what? After the top three, there's a real big drop off down to those guys. And he used to sort of riff on that. And I think that's what that this tournament brought home to me is that the three top sides in the world at the moment, being Spain, Argentina, and France, are light years ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, definitely.
They're
I
like a
mean,
level, they're light years ahead on a tactical level. It's incredible.
yeah, definitely. I think like even though like I think in a way, see, like England also winning the bronze medal game or the place playoff, uh, it is something for them to take away from this World Cup, no matter what it is. Like I think Harry Kane, like I presume this could be his last World Cup. I mean, you never know with how
You'd
modern
hope
sports
so.
science, yeah, modern day sports science, how it works and all. You never know how it works, but uh, I'm pretty sure like once he's, like once he's retired and he's reminiscing and all, he'll definitely come back with, fond memories about that bronze medal. Like maybe in the moment it won't be, they won't value it as much, but definitely it is something which they will take home with them from that, experience altogether. So like, I think, okay, so there's one thing which I wanted to discuss. Rodri winning the golden ball. Now, I felt, yeah, I think he was really good in the semifinal as well as in the final. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I I actually was very surprised by the decision. For one thing, I don't think he was consistently Spain's best player throughout the tournament. I felt Pedro Porro had a better shout compared to Rodri. I would say Kubasi had a better shout compared to Rodri. Like both of them were more consistent compared to Rodri. I do feel that Rodri had a few moments that he was not really at least in the initial stages. He did come up comes in the end, but there's that. And also, I think the no-brainer choice had to be Messi. Like I felt it had to be either between Messi, Bellingham, or Mbappe. And I think it was very a winning team bias. And I don't think they even went with the best player for the winning team. What are your thoughts? I think you may have different thoughts, but yeah, what is it from the other?
Well, I mean, obviously the play of the tournament for me was Pico Lopez from Cap Verde, who held all these teams scoreless. Nobody beat these guys in normal time. And before the tournament was over, he was back playing for Shamrock Rovers in Dublin in league games and European qualifiers. I think he was up in the northwest of Ireland playing away there, So, but he was the guy I was actually going to vote for in the association, the International Association of Sports Journalists, the AIPS. I was going to vote for him, but I forgot my card number and I couldn't give him the one vote he was going to get. But I do think you're right there. I do think that Bellingham in particular, I would make a strong case for. Messi, I think, were still clouded by this brilliant player that he was. And of course, he had his goals and he had his assists in the semi final, and he really did change that particular game. But then also, it was a tactical error by England to let him do that. But I think that England never would have. If you take Jude Bellingham out of that England team, they're gone either in the quarterfinals or beforehand. Jude Bellingham was the one who imposed himself more so than any other player in England, Harry Kane included. Jude Bellingham imposed himself on the games when it was needed. And even at the very end of the third and fourth place playoff, like France were knocking on the door there. England were out on their feet. They were all at sea. They had no idea, again, how to solve the problem in front of them. Bellingham gets the ball, goes up there and scores a goal. Okay. You ask yourself, is the French defence going to let him do that under normal circumstances? Probably not. Somebody's going to hit him pretty hard in the box. But in that situation, he did it, and you can't take it away from him. But I would say, Ashish, that Rodri, to me, over the course of the entire tournament, is not a bad shout, right? I'm not going to scream robbery from Messi or Bellingham or anybody else.
Yeah,
And the reason I say that to you, my friend, is because what he brings to the Spanish team without the ball is immeasurable, right? So the whole way that Spain sets up depends almost entirely on him doing everything right and being in the right place with the ball and without the ball. And without that, if you look over the course of those, of like the entire game that they played against Argentina, you look over the course of that whole game, and you say that he was the one that they were looking to solve the puzzle, to solve the problem, to open up the Argentinian defense. And not only that, he was the one that they were looking to keep them all together. Right, so he's the one that provides the freedom for Cucurella, for the rest of them. He's the one who drops back when somebody else needs to go forward. He's the one who moves on, who moves into space, who takes those just 5 or 6 meters just to make himself available again. And he may never get the ball in that situation. But in doing that, he'll pull McAllister over a little bit, and that opens up a ball out to Cucurella down the left, for instance. And that happened a good few times in the second half as Spain were knocking on the door. And that's why I think, when you look at the FIFA technical committee, you sit there, I'm not sure. Arsene Wenger used to be part of it. Andy Roxburgh, the Scottish coach, used to be part of it as well. And I know from talking to them that they look not just at the goals and the assists and yellow and red cards, that kind of thing. They look at the overall influence on the game. And the only one I can think of who could match Rodri in terms of this whole tournament of doing that is Bellingham, because Bellingham was the only one who was able to grab a game by the scruff of the neck. I mean, Haaland did it, but he did it with goals. He didn't do it with touches. He did it with a little bit of pressing when he had energy, but not that much.
Yeah, like I mean, it's more on the point. Like I mean, I'm not saying that Rodri didn't deserve it. I think yeah, he was like outstanding in the semifinal, especially like even the final as well. Like up until he got, I think he was taken off with injury, if I'm not wrong. Like that's why
Yeah.
he got taken off. So there's that, but I think there's this part of me which like finds it a little dirty in the sense that dirty is a very strong word, but in the sense that in the very aftermath of that game, there was an Athletic article which like literally posited this theory of, is Rodri among in the midst of a GOAT conversation? And I'm like, okay, like Rodri is a great player, and I'm not taking anything from whatever he's achieved in his career. And my thing, see, like I as a person, philosophically speaking, I do feel like the attacking players are attacking players for a reason. They are the highest paid players in the world. They always garner the most transfer fees because for the sole fact that in a game of football or soccer for that matter, the event of a goal is very rare in and of itself, and those guys are the difference makers in ensuring that a game is decided at the end of the day. Whereas, I mean, Rodri, like it kind of gave me a reminder of it's a little bit personal for me. So in 2021, Jorginho won the Euros and he won the Champions League with Chelsea, and there was this whole retrospective. Rewriting of how Jorginho is as a player, and I mean, I really I don't want to speak ill on a person who's left my club like, for some time now, but I really didn't think much of him when he was a player at Chelsea. And I tend to think of such players as all fart, no shit players. Like, excuse my French, so to speak, because I don't see how they determine the thing. And I would say like it took away a lot of gloss from a more deserving player, say Kante. And Jorginho coming third in that Ballon d'Or was like the most scandalous thing I've ever seen. I am a Chelsea fan, so that's my whole point I would like to make. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on those sorts of players, and I think Rodri is the Michael Jordan of such level of players, but to bring a very social media topic and yeah, so that's my point. Like, I mean, that's why I kind of detest such conversations. Putting a player like Rodri in GOAT conversations is a entirely different thing altogether. So, like, to forgive my rant.
So I have to hear what you have to say about that.
Uh, well, okay, speaking about the golden ball thing, yeah, I do believe. I don't think it's as controversial. It is a controversial thing. I think Rodri, he was like sort of the heartbeat of the Spanish team. So he did deservedly win it. But I also feel like all the players that we're making a case for, Jude Bellingham, for example, Messi, for example, and also Mbappe, if any of these players had made it to the final and had won it, I think any of these players would have gotten it on account of just winning the final, making it to the final and winning the final, right? So that there I do agree that Rodri uh, did deservedly win it, but also I agree with what Ashish had to say about uh, um, players being hyped because they've had a good tournament or uh, they come into these top three conversations. I mean, we saw it last year with the women's Euros as well, and not to take anything away from these players, but I feel like with the way the women's Euros went and with how the domestic season went and how the Ballon d'Or voting finally came out, like the results finally came out, people had similar thoughts on how, say, a lot of people believe that Alessia Russo being in the top three conversation of all time was too much, given that she had had a really good season both domestically and internationally. But for that particular year, yes, she was in the top three. But I see a lot of parallels, obviously, and whenever whenever there's a major tournament, we always have these discussions about. Uh, it's just easier when someone like Messi wins it because in your mind he's the forever goat. And then when he wins an award and when he's in line to win the Ballon d'Or, it's easier for you to just say, yeah, he deserves it. But when it's another player who has won a tournament and has not been in forever regarded as like one of the greatest players, or has never been in that conversation for a very long time, or like consistently at least, I see why these arguments do come up. But yeah, I feel like for the tournament, very deservedly so.
I think there's an interesting thing as well, and Ashish, you touched on it as well, that like, defenders don't often get their names in the mix for these things, either for the Ballon d'Or or for any, Player of the Year award of that. It's very seldom that happens. And I was thinking back to Franz Beckenbauer, because if you're the old man of this podcast, I'm Gandalf being brought in on the side here. I can remember like back before the time of football existing. I remember Franz Beckenbauer, der Kaiser, playing for Germany and inventing sort of the role of the attacking sweeper, playing just behind the two central defenders and marching forward in the 1970s when I started to watch football. And he contributed with goals and assists in that way because he had the license to attack. And his name is still mentioned among the greatest players in the world. But that's because he had that attacking element to his game. It wasn't simply because of his defending, because if it was, Cannavaro probably would have won a few years ago. There's Lucio, who played for Brazil, had some great tournaments, both in World Cups, but also in the Copa America. And this, so it's really difficult to make that judgment. And it's not simply the best player. It's, the effect of their contribution as well, So whereas with Bellingham, what Bellingham did in the World Cup for England, if he was to have won the prize, an awful lot of that would be to do with the goals that he scored and when he did what he did during particular games, right? Whereas Rodri was just class all the way through every game. He never dropped below a certain level until he got injured and had to be replaced. Never dropped below that. Whereas, and Haaland is the exact opposite. He appeared, stuck the ball in the back of the net. Who was it? He scored against Brazil, or was it Congo? He scored against. He went, "Oh Jesus, I just wasn't able for extra time, so I just had to score, and that was it." And he won the game for them. But so there's a whole palette of different players there and different reasons that they could have won. But I think Rodri is probably a fair shout now, especially given how messy the final was. And pardon the pun, the fact that it was like such a difficult game to have a decisive influence on. But he was, if anybody was the sort of conductor for that particular orchestral piece, it was definitely Rodri in my book. And therefore, I think over the course of the tournament, it's probably not a bad shout.
Yeah, I think, see, I don't have a problem with Rodri winning it in this particular instance. It's more like, I got a little triggered when I saw that athletic article of him being in GOAT conversation. I'm like what utter woke nonsense, that the Sean Dyche meme. That was literally me in the moment when I was just doing that. So
But
I
that's the
get,
thing.
yeah,
This what's I think it's called Betteridge's law, where if you have a question in the headline, you can always answer it with no. Okay, so is Rodri the greatest football player of all time? No, he's not. Okay, and like I say, that's just stupid conversation to be had. And to
yeah,
be honest, it's the kind of thing I expect from the Athletic, because at least once a day they'll put out an article like that. It's almost like rage baiting me, to say things like that. Actually, there's a book being written about a friend of mine by a friend of mine called Andrew Downey. He's writing a new book about Pele. And every time, he's not on Twitter anymore, but if you go on Blue Sky, you'll see him following me. And every time people talk about Messi or Ronaldo or that kind of thing, like Andrew's one of the great historians of Brazilian football. He's from Scotland. He's a Hibernian fan for his sins, but he has lived in Brazil for many years. He's interviewed all of these people. He's written books before about Socrates, the great player from 1982, a great left-wing activist. And like the books he writes are absolutely amazing, the level of detail in it. And if you were to suggest to him that Rodri was the greatest player of all time, I think the man would have a stroke right in front of you on a Zoom call like this. His head would just explode at that notion. And I think the Athletic are secretly trying to do away with them by having these discussions, But it's definitely, as I say, Betteridge's law. If you can answer it, like if the question is a headline, you can answer it with no.